Should I put it on? All right, guys, we're live. Pimp on a Blimp live from New York. We got Jimmy. We're going to be reacting to this debate. How is the audio? You guys hear me?
It seems a little scratchy. Hold on. Something's weird happening with Brandon's audio. Let me mute Brandon again.
What about now? What about when I say something now?
Yeah, you sound great. Now you do.
Maybe it's not going through Brandon's headphones. I don't know. We'll figure it out. I mean, we have a few minutes. We got 10 minutes before it starts. 11 minutes exactly, according to the clock right there, guys. Well, we are coming to you from New York City. Jimmy, I had a crazy day today. I'm still a little shaken up. I hate to be like that. I'm not even trying to be like a victim, but I'm a little shaken up today. Yeah, I'm hearing Brandon. I don't think Brandon's headphones.
Yeah, so I just unmuted Brandon for a second to see what would happen, and it caused the weird feedback. So, Brandon, something's going on with your mic, unfortunately. So we'll just keep you muted for a little bit.
Yeah, I think
figure it out later.
Audio maybe is not going through his headphones. I don't know. Well, we have time. I'm in the MX Lounge. It's beautiful here. We got food. We got my Diet Coke. I'm in a private room.
Ooh.
Maybe I should sit like that. Does that give you a little more oomph if you can see the rest of the room? Okay, who's going to win this debate? What's the chat saying? Make sure these super chats we got to put on the screen. Stein's people responded. Let's see. Tuesday the 17th would be great. We record at 6 p.m. Central Time and that time works for you and be short and sweet. Okay, looks like we got Jill Stein. Jimmy, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Jimmy?
Now I can, yeah.
You couldn't hear me?
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you. Hold on, let me just, so.
That's huge. We're going to get Jill Stein on, dude. She's been
I'm going to X out a bunch of stuff.
What?
No, I froze up for a little bit. I think I know what happened, though. I was getting off the VPN.
You're using a VPN. You use a VPN. I mean, everybody should have a VPN, but you're using it to use StreamYard.
No, it was because I was also working on the Octopus for tomorrow's show, but I had to use the Blaze VPN. But then I realized it was slowing me down, so I had to get off. So that's why it kind of farted out for a little bit. But I think we're good now. I'm going to get back on the stream. Sorry about that.
The waiting room, guys. Delicious food. This is all plant-based. I don't know what these are like. Kind of farb. I don't know what these are called, but like quinoa, but different. Good. And the sugar cookie. Well, once we get this all figured out, we should go live on Twitter as well.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm at the airport. People are saying the video is blurry on the Roku. I don't know why that is. Jimmy, your internet must suck.
Yeah, that's here. I'm exiting out on all the other tabs I have open.
Wow, ancient power grains. Yeah, I guess these are grains. These are grains of some sort. I feel like a horse, though. I feel strong like a horse.
You good now, Jimmy?
I think.
Oh.
Okay, here, let me turn on the audio for the stream.
Hillary Clinton. He told you that he had respect for Hillary Clinton, that Hillary Clinton was smart as you were preparing.
Okay, there doesn't seem to be any feedback on Brandon's end, so that's good.
I'm changing my setup around, so there's still some kinks I'm working out.
Like a light. Dude, I can't believe my mic was not plugged in for that whole stream. So annoying.
I mean, it looks like it was plugged in. It just didn't look like it was getting any audio from it or something.
I know those freaking DJIs are just sometimes it works, sometimes it don't. But that's
you gotta start tapping on them.
I know.
Because sometimes when you blow and then you do an audio test, you still hear, but if you tap on it, it'll be very clear if it's on or not.
I know Morgan's like, they were texting me and Paige texting me, assaulting me in Times Square, and Haitians like threatening to pepper spray me. It was not.
What, real quick, what was up with the scammer dude? I didn't catch you live. I came in like halfway through that interaction.
Well, so what they do is, and this has been going on, even Luis Gomez, I think, started. You start out as a barker, where you bark and you try to get people to go to the comedy club. I'm not even hating on that, but he's wearing all this Comedy Central stuff as if like comics that were just in Comedy Central are going to be there, and it's not true. You buy a ticket, and then you see a bunch of no-name open micers. And I'm not even trying to throw shade at the open micers. It's just those guys, they misrepresent the show that you're going to. As a matter of fact, they used to have it so egregious where they would hand you a flyer, and it would say like Jerry Seinfeld on it. It would be like, and then on the bottom, from Jerry Seinfeld. Jimmy, your internet must be messed up, huh? Are you on Wi-Fi, Jimmy? I don't think Jimmy can hear me. Or maybe his mic doesn't.
Jimmy, you're muted.
I know Brandon looks nice. His webcam looks nice. I don't hear Jimmy, and I think Jimmy's internet is. You better hurry, dude. Let me see. Are you there, Jimmy? Jimmy's not even saying anything. Let's see if I can. How do I add? Jimmy, does it let you add Twitter?
You're muted, Jimmy. Jimmy's going down. Jimmy. Chat, this is all Jimmy's fault. I just want that on the record.
I am getting my big break right now. All right, sorry, Brandon. We let you in there. We left you all alone. I'm trying to get it. Jimmy, does it let you see if you can add Twitter?
Should be in like your top right.
Yeah, so I see like it says you're on YouTube. Maybe I'll edit. Oh, okay, I'll push Alex Stein 99 Twitter. Push that.
Yep, there you go.
Okay. So it's on Twitter now. Yeah, for whatever reason, I changed my Wi-Fi to I have a 5G version. Oh, Blaine Cruz is in the chat. What's up? It's Hannah Cruz's husband.
I know Blaine very well. Come on.
Yeah, he's the man. He's gonna be at the Tucker event. He and Hannah.
Oh, and breaking news, I'm gonna be on Tim Pool's show this Friday, so
Hell yeah, dude. A little trolling, maybe?
I gotta bring I need like one of those Russian hats.
Jimmy, can you go pee with your mic on again? That'd be really funny.
Do what again? Pee with my mic on? What?
No, remember when Jimmy went to the bathroom with his mic on?
I almost did it again. Right before you got on, I was like, okay, I'm gonna use the bathroom. I got up with my mic and I'm like, wait a second. I'm gonna put this off.
Jimmy, see if we can go now. Now show the debate see if it'll work.
Drugs. What her role was in Afghanistan. So really.
Okay.
Okay, I just muted it just while they're not talking about the debate.
Kamala Harris, they made a smaller podium, so she would be, I guess, wouldn't look small compared to the podium. That's insane.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's hilarious.
It looks so funny too. It looks like a podium for a midget. It's like 4 feet tall.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, how does that really help her? Like, are these people that crazy that they think that if she has a smaller podium, I mean, I guess they know because what was it, the JFK debate against Richard Nixon, and Richard Nixon was like sweating and JFK had makeup on. They teach you that in history class. That was what one was that debate. So this is a very monumental event that we're about to watch. $2 super chat, Jimmy, put that on the screen. Lenny for us. Oh, Lenny, dude, Lenny made the best. Lenny, dude, that We need to send that to the Blaze people, or Lenny, you need to sell that. I'll share it. I don't care. You can make the money because the Blaze, they probably won't like it if if there's some sort of legal thing. But if you make a link and you sell that shirt, I'll share it because that shirt is hilarious. We need more people. It has Sam Hyde vibes. It's awesome. It has rap vibes. I love that shirt, Lenny. You're very talented. We need more people like you trying to help all the chat rats look pimp when they're in the club, when they're on vacation, when they're at work, just in all circumstances. That shirt was pimp on a blend, to say the very least.
Yeah, the one posted on Twitter was pretty rad.
Yeah, badass. I can't believe Jill Stein. She's potentially going to come on the 17th. Dude, that would be huge.
Did she respond?
Yeah. I said, did you not hear what I said?
No, my internet farted out for that when you were explaining.
Email back. They're saying that he thinks you can do the 17th.
That would be amazing.
I know, James. I know.
Look at us. We're just expanding the political spectrum. We got Angela Belcamino, Frank Krasenstein, and spotted to my DM.
If we can get Krasenstein on, that'd be great. But I'm not going to be mean to Jill Stein.
No.
In fact, I debated voting for her a couple times just for her last name. So, I mean, I
No, maybe you'd be like, Tucker's my biological stepfather. You might be my aunt or something.
Get like some sort of DNA test, but it needs to prove that we are related. Like, God, we need to lie. Like, I am, like, we are related, Jill. You stop ignoring me. I'm your kinfolk. Okay,
right, here we go.
9. It's 9. Let's go.
High-stakes showdown here in Philadelphia between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. Their first face-to-face meeting in this presidential election. Their first face-to-face meeting.
A historic race for president upended just weeks ago. President Biden withdrawing after his last debate. Donald Trump now up against a new opponent.
The candidates separated by the smallest of margins, essentially tied in the polls nationally and in the key battlegrounds, including Pennsylvania, all still very much in play. The ABC News presidential debate starts right now.
This is an ABC News special, the most consequential moment of this campaign. Kamala Harris.
Together, we will chart a new way forward.
Donald Trump.
We will soon be a great nation again.
Face to face. Historic.
Hear the audio, or I guess I can. So they should be able to hear.
Alex, if you have headphones or something for your put it on, because the debate audio, it's drowning out your audio.
Yeah, hold on.
Yeah, so we'll just watch for a little bit while you get your headphones set up.
And President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's meeting could be the most consequential event of their campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, and this is the clock. That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution Center.
Okay,
this
how
is
it
an
now?
intimate setting for 2 candidates who have never met.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium.
I'm still hearing some feedback.
Let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
Let's go. Oh, look, she tried to go to shake his hand.
It's a good debate.
Oh, shut up, Kamala. Shut up. Like you never met him.
It's an honor to have
I'm Kamala Harris. Shut up. Do not say your name like they don't know your dumbass name.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their number one issue, and that is the economy.
Abortion.
And the cost of living in this country.
Actually, I think more people care about abortion than the economy.
Elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, "Are you better off than you were 4 years ago?"
No.
When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So
Pamela looks weird.
I was raised as a middle-class kid. And
Oh,
I
she's
am
fucked.
actually the only
She's
person
fucked.
on this stage
It's
who
over.
has a plan that is about lifting up the middle
It's
class
over.
and working people of America.
She
I
did a
believe
neck
in
job
the
too. They gave her some
ambition,
neck
the
surgery.
aspirations,
Let
the
her
dreams
talk.
of
I
the
want to hear
American
her
people.
talk.
And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing.
Opportunity
We know
economy.
that
Yeah,
we
for
have
Haitians that
a
want to eat your
shortage
cat.
of homes and housing. And the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families
lower the price
need
of homes.
support to raise their children, and I
Quit letting
intend on
BlackRock buy all
extending
the
a
homes.
tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. I was actually, my mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman
Well, you
who
worked at
helped raise
McDonald's,
us.
you
We call her our
liar.
second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone
Just start
of
up.
America's
Give it to the
economy.
already people that are in the
My opponent,
business.
on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in
Talk
about
about your own crap.
$4,000 more a year because of
She's
his
saying what Trump's going to
policies
do. Talk
and his
about what you're going to
ideas
do, Kamala.
about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
She sounds like she's about to start crying.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because it was so much money.
Brandon, from China?
It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation has, which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado.
Springfield. You know, they wrote that down. Say something about Springfield.
They're going in violently.
Sure.
These are the people that she and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest.
I'm telling you, Brandon, I think I'm hearing an echo on your end somehow.
I'll do it again.
Are you playing it on a?
We are going to get to immigration and
on
border
a,
security
Brandon,
during this
I don't
debate.
hear
but
anything.
I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression.
Yeah, because we fired everybody
Donald
for
Trump
COVID, you
left
idiot.
us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025
Brandon, it's still
that the
echoing.
former president intends on implementing
Really?
if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got
Not
together.
gonna
They
read
came
it.
up with some
Haven't read
ideas.
it.
I guess
Not
some
gonna
good,
read
some
it.
bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns. We got
I don't know if I
masks.
like
We
that
did things
that
that
much.
nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back
Well,
jobs. These were
let's not talk
jobs
about the pandemic.
bounce back, and it bounced back, and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy. And the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What
shut
the
up.
Wharton School
Goldman
has said
Sachs
is Donald
is-
Trump's plan
Wharton,
would
come on. That's where
actually
Trump graduated
explode
from.
the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite. I gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School
unmuted.
of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She
That is
doesn't have
funny.
a plan.
Run, spot, run.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both
She
brought
looks
up.
different.
The
Kamala
Vice
looks
President brought
different.
up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this because your plan is what
Let's
she
drill
calls
down
is
on it.
essentially a
Shut
national
up.
sales
You're
tax.
so
Your
annoying.
proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing,
That's not
medication.
true. Gas has
arguing it
risen
costs a
double than
typical
what it
family
was when
nearly
Trump left office.
$4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response. And you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is, under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But
that's funny.
If she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals.
Mention the
and
cash.
That's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their
put funny comments on the screen.
In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's an execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born is okay.
They keep the baby comfortable before they execute it. These people are sick.
But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar Every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response.
Oh, shut up!
Well, as I
Who
said,
is
you're
this
hear a bunch of
dumb-
lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life.
It's not health care.
Trump abortion bans that make no exception
How is
even
that
for
healthcare
rape
for the
and
baby?
incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country.
You told us all to get
who wanna
vaccinated
talk
or we
about this
can't
is
go to
what
work,
people
we can't go to
wanted.
7-Eleven, we can't buy a
Pregnant
hot
women
dog.
who
What,
want to carry
what do you mean? You told us what to
pregnancy
do with our
term,
body?
Suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's
Notice how
bleeding
this
out
is
in
the
a car
most
in a
important
parking
thing,
lot.
abortion. I
She
mean,
didn't want that.
it is an
Her
important
husband didn't
thing,
want
but
that.
it's
A
just so
12 or
annoying.
13-year-old
all that
survivor of
matters.
incest
I know.
being
I mean, it
forced
is
to carry a
important, but it's
pregnancy
like,
to term. They
is it
don't
more
want
important
that.
than everything
I
else? I
pledge
don't
to
know.
you,
I don't know if that's.
When
Well, it's all
Congress
they
passes
got.
a bill
Can't
to put
run the
back in
economy,
place the
immigration.
protections of Roe v. Wade, as president
think
of
it
the
can on
United States, I
abortion.
will proudly sign it into law.
You're already
But
the vice
understand,
president.
if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies.
We love
your
Monograph.
miscarriages.
Shout out
I
Monograph.
think
He's
the
got a great
American people
lawsuit, and he's doing
believe
well in his lawsuit.
that
Congrats,
certain
Monograph.
freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody
Get a
else,
cookie.
and
I'm
every
stress
legal
eating.
scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a
That's a good
national
answer.
abortion ban?
That's a
if
good
it
Well,
answer.
I won't have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50 and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of when they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again.
Boom,
We'll do it a
roasted.
different way. And
That
he
was a
went
great
out,
line.
got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea. And how unfair that would have been, part of the reason they lost, to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D. And I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to
He
get
was
it. Just
avoiding
like she
the
couldn't get student
question.
loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years, they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make
So why is
decisions
the
about her own
moderator
body.
fact checking?
And that is why
I don't know. I've
in
used the
every
restroom. I'll
state
be right
where
back.
this issue has been on the ballot in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I
thank
have
you.
to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing,
fertilization.
You should
Sorry,
ask.
that's funny.
Will
Been
she
a leader
allow
on
abortion
fertilization.
in the 8th month, 9th month,
The leader on
7th month?
fertilization.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you answer
Hell
that
yeah.
question?
Why don't you answer
That's the
question?
problem.
Would you
because
veto?
under Roe v.
Answer
Wade,
the question,
you
would you
could,
veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month,
Isn't her
the
mic
9th
supposed to be
month,
muted?
and probably after birth.
Yeah,
Just
that's a
look
good
at
point.
the
Her
governor,
mic's not
former
muted.
governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said, we put the baby aside, and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill, which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime, trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human
It's not
beings.
who you're
But you
talking
know what
about
happened
trans.
to that bill? Donald Trump got on the
Transnational
phone,
crimes, not
called up
transgender.
I
some folks in
understand,
Congress and
Jimmy,
said,
the
kill the
difference.
bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand.
You're the
But
vice
what we have in
president.
the former
Solve some of these
president is someone who
problems,
would prefer to
Kamala.
run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to
Ooh.
attend one of Donald Trump's rallies because it's a really interesting thing to watch.
It's
You
fun.
will see during the course of his rallies,
Where you
he
try to
talks
kill
about
him?
fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom.
That's
And I will tell
absolutely
you, the one
untrue.
thing you will not hear him talk about is you.
And you know they
You will
wrote
not
that
hear him
before.
talk
They
about
told her
your
to say
needs,
that.
your
like,
dreams, and your
No
your
shit,
desires.
yeah.
And
I'm
I'll
just
tell
saying,
you, I
that was
believe
like
you deserve a
that was a
president
key
who
point they wanted
actually
her to
puts you
make.
first. And I pledge to you that I will.
That might
Vice
backfire.
President
What if
Harris,
they go
thank
to
you.
that
President
rally?
Trump, on
Like,
that
this
point,
is
I want to get your
awesome.
response.
Well, I would like to
I
respond.
know.
Let me just ask
Remember
though,
Boogie
why
went
did
there
you
with a
try to
camel
kill
shirt
that
and everybody
bill
was nice to
successfully
him?
So that would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go.
Boom,
The people that do
roasted.
go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then
Look at her, she's
showing them
pissed.
in a
She's
different
pissed.
light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take
God,
their
let it
country
go.
back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation, and it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject.
Very true.
What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating.
Thank you.
They're eating the pets of the people.
God
that
bless
live
America.
there. And this
Thank
is
you,
what's
President Trump.
happening in our country, and it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase: make America great again. She's destroying this country. And if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, will end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured,
shut
or
up. We've
abused
seen the
by
videos.
individuals
Shut
within
up.
the immigrant community.
Well,
All
I've
this.
seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
Yeah,
People
I've
on
seen the
television
videos
say my dog
myself.
was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good
Yeah.
thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
But the
television.
people are
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by
Yeah.
Yeah,
the
they'd never
people that
lie.
went there.
Yeah, the city manager
Again,
would never
Springfield
lie.
city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest
Yeah,
of
we
what
will
you've heard.
find out.
You're
That
talking
guy's a
about
dumbass.
extreme.
What is that ABC host name? He's an idiot.
You know, this is,
ABC
I think,
is
one
really
of the
helping him
reasons
out.
why in this election,
her out,
I
excuse
actually
me.
have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with
Yeah,
President Bush,
neocons.
Mitt Romney, and
Yeah,
John McCain,
warmongers.
including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congressman.
Oh, you want Dick Cheney on your sign, you dumb. See you
And
next
if you
Tuesday.
want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond
Yeah.
here.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people, not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people who's were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired
Look at her
all
face.
those
Look at her
generals,
face
all
right
those
there.
top people,
He keeps
because that was
making
one of the
weird
most
faces.
incompetently handled
They
situations.
told her to do
anybody
that. Be really
has
expressive
ever
when
seen.
you're not
So
speaking, is
when
what I
somebody does a
imagine they
bad
directed
job,
her to do.
I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book, because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they. But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But
he's making a
just
great
to finish,
point, though.
I got more votes
they don't fire
than any
anybody. They
Republican
actually
in history
promote
by far.
people when they fail.
In fact, I got more votes than any sitting president in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier. So let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well.
Send him home.
President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million
Thank you for the $5 super chat,
you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of
Look
them.
how he's trying to set
they
him
allowed
up.
criminals,
Well, they go
many
door to door.
millions
Shut
of
up.
criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers to come into our country, and they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country.
Oh, my God. Why are they fact-checking them every time?
Statements. They didn't include the worst
trustworthy
cities.
FBI.
They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud. Just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national
I like when Trump
security
smiles
crimes,
like that.
economic
Like,
crimes,
he looks funny.
election interference,
I love that
has
you won't
been
look at
found
her.
Yeah, he does
liable
not want to look
for
at it now.
sexual
I don't blame him.
assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear, where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect
What's
for the
so
rule
stupid is
of
people
law
are going to say that
and
Kamala's
respect
doing
for
good.
law
She's
enforcement.
not, but
The
it's just...
former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on
They
the
gave
day
her all
after
the
he was
questions,
arraigned
too.
on 34 felony counts.
Yep.
So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American
You can
people
bring
are
down the price of
exhausted
groceries. You're the
with
vice
the same
president, you
old tired people.
psycho.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're
President Trump-
fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people
Vice
to
President
stop
Harris,
him.
thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
Fact.
They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy
President
with a fake
Trump,
Russia investigation
We do have a lot to
that
get-
went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of the, at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking.
Yeah,
as
right. You
Vice
guys cut
President
the
of United States,
Keystone
and in fact,
Pipeline. You guys
I
don't want
was
oil
the
and gas. You can't even get a new
tie-breaking vote
well
on the
in the
Inflation
Gulf of
Reduction
Mexico right
Act,
now.
which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother.
You
who
grew up in
worked and
Canada.
saved
Yeah, right.
and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The
So your
values I
mom,
bring
as a
to
single
the
woman, is
importance
able to
of
buy a
homeownership,
home.
knowing
That-
not
and
everybody
not
got
the case with
handed
most people in America
$400
today.
million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My
And give them
work
to illegal
that
immigrants?
is
Is that what
related
you're going to do with them?
to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded
He
in
needs
the
to bring up
importance of
McDonald's.
standing up for
Yeah,
those who
he
are
needs
most
to bring up
vulnerable.
McDonald's because
My
she took it off her
work that
campaign
is about
website.
protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your
Well,
response?
first of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it,
And
they
she's
are
triggering
even
him.
surprised.
She knows how to
So
get him.
we don't
All
have
he
to
needs
talk about
is the
that.
border.
Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police. She's been against that forever. She
is
gave
true.
I mean,
all that stuff
against
up
defund the police?
very
I mean,
wrongly,
for.
very
meant
horribly.
for.
And
Well, you know what he
everybody's laughing
meant.
at
Come
it,
on,
okay?
he's in
They're
it.
all
You're
laughing at
doing
it.
this
She gave up
impromptu.
at
You're gonna
least
just-
12 and probably
We know
14
what
or
he
15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out. Wait a minute. I'm talking now.
Good.
don't mind.
Just keep talking.
Oh!
Does that sound
Keep talking.
familiar? She went out. She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did
You
things
did. Yes, you did. Don't shake your head.
to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left
Hell
liberal
yeah.
that would do this.
Boom.
She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish one thing, so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before.
That's true.
When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it. And the
Midland,
prices were
Texas, there was
going
like guys
up
driving
the
Ferraris
roof.
that worked
They
just on the
immediately
just landmen, you know,
go
mid-level
they-
guys.
I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country and oil will be dead. Fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills and we'll go back to solar where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar. But they take 400, 500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that we
for the
have to get
environment
to.
that
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days.
Oh,
And I
no
wanna talk
shit,
about the
Sherlock.
peaceful
Shut
transfer of
up.
power, which of course we all
Why do you
know
think
is a
we're here,
cornerstone of our
dude? This guy
democracy and the
sucks.
role
Who
of
is
the president
this guy's so
in a moment
annoying.
of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that
What a
isn't
loaded
covered.
question.
Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control
Yup.
police officer
Roseanne Boylan
that
as
should
well.
have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar. Remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle? They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask
You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the president of the United States incited a violent mob
Oh, shut up.
to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, The former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate.
Oh,
what
and
did
people in your party
the
aren't
president
anti-Semites.
then at the time
Shut up.
say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the
Shut up,
president
Gavin
said, the
McInnes.
former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the
ABC,
future
you're gonna fact check
and
that
not
one?
go backwards to the past.
No, they're
Let
not.
me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it.
You couldn't
If
remember
they go
Jesse
an
Waters last
extra
week.
sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this, you talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have
I
the
know,
right
they
to
can
do it.
close
the
the border.
President of the
It's
United
open.
States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is
He
closed,
should go
all he
after
has to do
Biden a
is
little
say it to
more.
the
I mean,
Border
just
Patrol, who are
the fact that
phenomenal.
he is the current
If they do
president,
that,
she's
the
just
border
like
is
covering
closed.
for him.
Those people are
I
killing
would like
many
to see him do
people,
that one.
unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say that.
sarcastically. You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said
Holy
sarcastically.
Trump.
Look,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying
They
to
definitely
get
don't know
them
what
to vote.
state
And
most
that's
of the
why they're
time.
allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification. And you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of
Now
many
he's
judges,
the
many of them
arbiter
Republican,
of
and said there's
They
sarcasm.
said
no
we didn't have
widespread fraud.
standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden,
Lenny.
And yourself.
$2 Australian.
But I do want to ask you about
Thank you,
something
Lenny.
that's come up in the
Anyone
last
want
couple
to check
of days.
who's
This was
under
a
David's
post from
table?
President Trump
Who knows?
about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81.
The questions are so leading,
So let's
you know,
be
it's
clear
just
about that.
ridiculous.
And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to
Thank you,
upend the
Macabella.
will
$10.
of the
It looks like I'm
voters
in a pizza
free
parlor's
and fair
basement, kinda.
election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as vice president of the United States.
And you've done
And
jack shit.
world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump.
Oh,
I
what
have
are they
talked
doing to
with
your ass?
military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace.
Are those the
And
trans
when you
ones?
then talk in this way in a
Rachel
presidential
Levine.
debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did in fact lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart, Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago, it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president, but when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it because
your time is
I think
up.
we're
Thank
going to
you.
do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now
Yes.
to the Israel-Hamas
Lot more to
war
get
and the
to.
hostages who are still being held, Americans
Let's get into
among them.
this.
Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making.
They're
President
closing the
Biden
lounge.
was
I gotta
able
go.
to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were
Let's eat Elon
horribly
Omar.
raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how
Thank
it
you.
does so matters. because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you
Tell that to
always,
Benjamin Netanyahu.
I will
I'm sure you
always give
agree.
Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel.
Trump's going to convince the Groypers to vote for Kamala. I guess they already are.
Arab population, because the whole place
They
is
took
gonna
Dick
get
Cheney's
blown up.
endorsement. They'll probably take
Arabs,
Nick Fuentes.
Jewish people,
Yeah.
Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now
That's true,
Iran
and then they
has
gave him a bunch of
$300
billions of
billion
dollars.
because they took
Yeah.
off all the sanctions that I
That's
had.
true.
Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror, and they are spheres of terror.
Terror.
Horrible terror.
Terror.
They had no
Right.
money. It was a big
Terror.
story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke.
Terror.
Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely
He did give me
well
Elton
known
John CD.
that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins.
Said
And
that
I
3
think he meant it.
times.
because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with
They
much
keep
more.
saying that every time they cut 'em off.
Presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a
Okay, pay attention what the first commercial is. I don't know if they're going to play it on
Pharmaceuticals.
YouTube.
Come on,
It's gonna be
pharmaceuticals.
The
Pfizer,
ABC News presidential debate will continue
because
after
they
this.
paid a lot of money for this commercial. Let's see what are they going to.
Oh,
This is
boo.
a
regular day for 19-year-old
They paid a
Melissa
ton
Witt.
of money for this.
She went to meet
Oh,
her
of course, it's
mom
in
at a Bowie
partnership with
church
ABC.
league,
Though.
but she never makes it into the bowling alley.
Okay, I'm muting that. I don't really care.
Dang, I was
What-
hoping
what-
it was going to be dick pills.
So
Yeah.
what we thinking so far?
I mean, people are going to say Kamala Harris is doing well, even if she did bad, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think the fact that she's not, completely brain dead like Joe Biden makes her seem good. Being able to speak and not look like you're a corpse on stage is pretty much the best she's being able to do.
yeah, but like even Joe Biden to me feels so much more presidential. Like I know he's an idiot, and I know he's like, like you said, a walking corpse, but she just doesn't seem presidential. But I guess this is the new president they want. They want like a multicultural woman, but she doesn't have the
Yeah.
swag to me. But people are stupid.
No,
man.
no, she doesn't have the aura, as the kids say.
At least
Ooh.
Biden kind of had that aura, in my opinion. I mean, not that Biden is qualified
Hell
to be
yeah.
president, but look at this Baywatch. What is
The
this?
Baywatch BTS.
Is that Jason Momoa? Jason Momoa is on Baywatch?
Apparently, I didn't realize that.
I'm really proud of everything I've done. Almost.
Good for you, Pamela.
Baywatch was a whirlwind of epic highs and bitter lows.
Everyone likes to watch.
God, we used to be such a hot country.
I know.
Now we're
We
just
used to have
fat and
sex
ugly.
appeal. Well,
Yeah.
honestly, the big pharma is going to change that because of Ozempic. Like even Lizzo's losing weight now.
That's true.
We're going to go back to
Until we
hot
fi-
people being cool.
Yeah, until we find out what Ozempic's going to do to people long term.
Oh, it's terrible long
It's gonna
term.
be terrible. Yeah.
No, well,
unless you have diabetes, like I think it's a diabetes drug that they give people that don't have diabetes, so that's why it's gonna.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess
Yeah.
what's a decade off your lifespan to look hot, I suppose.
You could argue that it's worth it, but it is what it is.
well, the thing, because my wife works for United Healthcare, so they have to like make rules around it. It's basically like it's only effective if you stay on it forever. If you stop, you're kind of screwed. So that's a classic big pharma, get you hooked.
Isn't it, Jimmy? Isn't it just because you start eating again? Once you stop
partially,
taking
but
it?
it also it'll like mess with you internally if you like start and stop.
this is how we know ABC sucks. I mean, Michael Strahan's like their biggest host, and
I'm
I've
not
been
talking anything privileged. Okay, Carrie's yelling at me. So
Why?
don't
What
talk
did you
about my job.
What did you say about her job?
Nothing. She was making sure.
Oh, Jimmy's in trouble.
Oh, God, I'm always in trouble.
It's good. You always
I got in trouble yesterday because I forgot to feed Chloe or Tiffany when I picked her up from.
You forgot to feed your baby,
You
dude.
forgot to feed your child?
Well,
you
Alright,
should
that
be in
one's
trouble. You should go to
justified.
jail,
Yeah.
dude. I'm about to call the cops.
Well,
You should
she's
not have
supposed to get
admitted
a-
that on stream that you forgot to feed your baby.
Well, she was supposed to get a bottle right after daycare, but instead we played on the swing, and then she got really cranky, and I was like, "Why are you cranky?" My wife said, "We'll have you fed her since you got home." I said, "No, we've been swinging." She goes, "Jimmy!"
Do you give your baby Similac? Is your baby on Similac?
No, we don't do Similac. We do Cabrita. It's goat milk.
Oh gosh,
How is it? Have you tasted
it's
it?
probably better.
I haven't
yeah.
tasted that one.
Okay.
Kama looks
Yeah.
like she is at a little baby urinal. A little baby. I don't really know what that means, Lenny.
Well, like the child urinal. If your baby takes Similac, it's either going to be retarded or go to the NFL.
That's true. Actually, one of my younger brothers got fed that, and he was a huge baby. It
He was
bulked him up.
big,
It was like
yeah. You
it
get
was like
huge.
steroids for babies. Yeah.
You become the blind side, dude. You're gonna become an offensive guard or tackle.
Well,
That's true.
baby Tiff at her last doctor's appointment, she's 90th percentile for weight and 98th percentile for height. So she might make
Hell
the
yeah,
NFL.
dude.
She might be the first woman in the NFL.
Your baby's all tall? No.
Yes.
Jimmy,
How
we're
tall
teaching
are
that baby
you?
how to play hoops.
Like
Are you 6 feet?
Yeah. I'm 6 foot, like right at 6 foot.
Maybe
Oh,
Tiff's
now
gonna
my
be the
wife's
next Caitlin
okay.
Clark.
Now my wife's texting me again, correcting me. It's organic, non-GMO goat milk, not just goat milk.
Oh, okay.
Try some Similac, your baby will get huge.
All right, we're back.
I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in
I hope they bring
America's
up Tim
best
Pool.
interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in
Tim would
24
love
hours. You
it.
said so just before the break tonight.
His name.
How
Free
exactly
advertising.
would you do
Yeah,
that?
I mean,
And
I
I
would
want to ask
like
you a
it,
very
yeah.
simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives
Good answer.
that are being
Good answer.
uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years. He hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left. I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's. Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here,
threw
good
him
point.
out
I
of
think
a
he should be
campaign like a
attacking
dog. We
Biden.
don't
Just
even
bring
know.
that up.
Is he our president? But we have a president
Mr.
that
President,
doesn't know he's alive.
your time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war? Yes or
God,
no?
I
she
think it's the
always
U.S. best interest to
reiterates
get
the
this war
question, so-
finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president, you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me.
Ooh.
I believe the reason that Donald Trump
Yeah,
says
they're
that
so
this
different.
war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as
What does that
Americans.
mean?
Let's understand what happened
Give it
here.
up. I mean,
I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our
Over 800
support,
on YouTube. Thank
because
you guys
of
for
the
being here.
air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are
Does
so
she really think that
thankful that
Vladimir
you are
Putin
no
is going to
longer
invade
president,
Europe?
and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their
I'm tired.
independence.
This is so
Otherwise,
bad.
Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and now, please, I'll give you a minute here.
Turn his mic on.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening, but he does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up
true.
something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not again appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban.
Abdul.
And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems.
Abdul.
And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was
Go do it,
we were
Abdul.
getting out. We would have been out faster than that, but we wouldn't have lost the
This is
soldiers.
so funny.
We wouldn't have left many Americans
That is
behind, and we
funny.
wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this,
Why did you send me a picture of my
and they
house?
didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move
And
on.
these people did the worst
Oh, you wanna move
withdrawal,
on?
and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You
Nice.
make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm
I
asking.
don't know. I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I
He
read
does
that she
have a
was black,
tanner,
and that's okay. Either
skin
one was
tone
okay
than
with
her.
me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people.
Okay, we're about
You
to
know, I
board the
do
plane.
believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we
All
don't
right,
want
we'll stay on to the end
this
of the
kind of
debate.
approach
get
that is
on.
just
I'll stay on.
constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was a land. He owned land. He owned buildings. And he was investigated because he refused to rent property to Black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young Black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5.
Not
Took out
entirely.
a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first Black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your 3rd time.
Oh, gosh.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said, going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park 5. They admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says.
He should have said
she
this
is
earlier.
Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time's up.
I want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging
comparing
the
Biden
American
and Trump
people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President Trump, we have to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy, please.
To defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she has
we
a
do have
plan
He's just yelling now.
Yes.
This is so ridiculous.
That's what her plan is until just recently.
I just think
Lindsay, go ahead.
President Trump, the former
Trump.
president has
I love
said
it. Bully the
something
He needs to
moderator.
take it off the
I'm
rails
sorry,
right
we're
now.
gonna
He- you might
Yeah,
as
this
well.
is so
President Trump, this is now your third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very
Always
good
will be.
today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this, I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was
Tyrah.
president.
That's my favorite
Do I
line of the
save
night.
it and
Tyrah.
make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just
At least Trump's
explain.
being honest.
I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan.
I have
They're so
concepts of a
annoying how they
plan.
always repeat
I'm
the
not
question at
president
the
right
end.
now. But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not too distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private healthcare options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So
Oh
stop
my
with the
God.
continuous
Shut
lying
up.
about this stuff.
Now she
As it
likes
relates to the
guns. Come
Affordable
on.
Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand.
Crazy.
When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said at the time, because
I prefer my
he got
prisoners
caught.
not
He was an
captured.
American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it.
Vice
Pass
President
prologue
Harris, thank
in terms
you.
of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a
She
lot
made a
of
mistake. Number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to give.
President
People
Trump.
are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said that climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
This debate kind of sucks. A few funny lines, but ABC moderators are pretty.
I kind of wish they'd let them bicker more. I don't like the muted mics.
Yeah, I think
let
if
them
they
just yell at each
again,
other.
it'll be unmuted.
I don't know if we'll get another one. I think they'll only do this one. I think she's probably done well enough that they won't agree to do anymore. Why risk it?
Did she? Her betting odds are skyrocketing. Like, so it was 53 to 46 or 53 to 45% odds. Here, I'll share on my screen. And now it's at 50%, 49%. He was ahead 8 points before the debate, and now he's only ahead 1 point.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but all these polls are fake.
Yeah. Well, this is just betting. It's not necessarily.
Is it poly market?
Yeah. My brother's calling me. Yo, Joe, you're on the live stream or live reacting to the debate.
Hi, Joe.
I'm on air right now.
Yeah.
I really wanted to, like, you know how the guy, the meme where the guy calls like, "Hey, am I live right now?" And the guy goes, "Yup." I was really close to just saying the F word and hanging up. I'm glad the moment has passed, but I'm still tempted to do it. If you Venmo me $50, I'll make it not happen.
Okay. Well, I'll call you back. I love you. Bye.
No.
Okay.
That's my brother. Are you want me to talk to him more? Oh, he's
No,
calling
I
back.
just-
Yes? Joe? Joe, did you call me back? All right, whatever.
Dang it, Joe.
Joe the fisherman.
Yeah, because I'm on
So you said her odds now are just 1% higher or 1% lower?
Yeah, well, she gained 7 points during the debate. That's pretty incredible.
Well, I
I'll
do
give her
like when you
credit. She
can
hasn't
gamble on the
sounded
presidential election.
She hasn't sounded mentally challenged, but all she has to do is one live interview, and she'll get screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but she won't. She won't agree to a competitive interview.
No, of course not. She has to stay on script, and they've clearly given her some of the questions. She pretty clearly knew what was coming.
Yeah.
So, oh no, they're cutting Alex's Wi-Fi. It's the deep state, everyone. What's Prince Harry up to now? Ooh, did he? Yeah, I did kind of expect Kamala to be a little more inebriated for this. I'm kind of disappointed in that. I think they probably just gave.
I think.
I think they just gave her
has
some
done well,
Adderall.
given her lack of political talent. She hasn't said anything remarkably stupid. She's lied a ton, but I mean that's expected.
Yeah, I mean, no one expected her to tell the truth, but I was hoping she'd be a little more slur and ease, but she's
it's no fun.
Unfortunately as locked in as she can be.
Just what? Yeah.
But yeah, she's doing her best to be Hillary 2.0, but she'll never be Hill Dog.
No, she won't.
Not as talented as Hillary, even though Hillary is crazy. But can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're just really quiet.
Yeah, you're just a little faint.
I'm on the plane and I don't have the volume very loud. I think I just don't have good service because I'm. You guys see that?
Kind of.
We're one of the last planes leaving LaGuardia.
Yeah, it's pretty late there.
Are you on one of these?
No, I'm on. That's gonna be great for tomorrow.
So what do you want to title tomorrow's episode? Do you want to center it around Baby Tiff, or just say like, or do you want to center around our guest Ben Swan, or what are you thinking?
I don't know, something. I'm so annoyed that my Bluetooth has just stopped working. I don't know, something about 9/11. Obviously, I don't know.
Well, do you want it to be like journalist uncovers 9/11 with Alex, or we can do Alex teaches baby 9/11
truth.
Yeah, but that could also be a really good clip.
Oh, we're back.
Okay, all right.
So I think you've heard tonight two very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world, and from all of us here at ABC News. Good night.
Well, that was something.
God, those moderators were terrible.
And we are here.
I mean, like, they're fact checking Trump and not Kamala. Just like either fact check both or.
Debate.
I mean, he's never going to get a fair debate. That's kind of what it is.
I actually thought the one versus Biden was fair. I mean, partially because Biden was.
You're a fake conservative. You're a liberal. That's why I think that's.
Yeah.
I think the Biden one was a setup, to be honest.
If he had just said no to Biden, the Biden debate would be happening now, and it would be the easiest election in U.S. history. But now it's not going to be a shoo-in.
Get these idiots off my screen, Jimmy.
What?
Get these libtards off my screen. I'm through with them.
Yeah, I'm through with them.
All right, we're about to take off. I got to end this stream.
Oh, wait, now they're even. Look at that. Polymarket. Oh, it's not. Oh, I thought I was sharing my screen. I'm not.
Let's see the betting markets. Yeah, but those betting markets move like that in order to get more vote. I mean, get more people gambling on it. You know, now people think she has to. You know, it's like the lines change. I don't know how much stock I put into that. What did they have? What were the gambling odds on Trump in 2016?
He was the underdog.
I don't.
Or
they have gambling for that?
He was like plus 500. It was insane. But he was 8 points ahead before the debate, and now he's 49-49. Wow. That's pretty shocking.
Wow.
Debate moved at 8 points on the betting market, but we shall see. It'll be interesting.
It was a crazy debate. Not anything to write home about, to say the least.
No, it wasn't. No, not as many good sound bites outside of Terra.
Tyra. That was the best. He sounds like Robert Kennedy's uncle or whatever. What's his
Yeah.
name?
JFK or RFK?
The one that killed the girl in Chappaquiddick, Ted Kennedy.
Oh, Ted. Yeah, Ted Kennedy. Well, we'll see what the outcome is. I don't know. I'm not sure either of them won. It's kind of just
It's pretty bad.
both sides.
Trump really took her bait. Like talking about immigration, be like his crowd sizes are small. And he's like, no, I'm never bored. My crowd sizes are huge. I'm like, come on.
Well, let's be real though. Trump had to debate 3 people tonight. So
I agree with that.
Yeah.
So
whatever. It's
I'm on Frontier Airlines. This flight was like 59 cents.
I've seen Pearl tweeting about Frontier, and she's like, "I don't care if you delay my flight; it costs $20."
Yeah, they ripped her off in her bag.
You get what you pay for.
Well, tomorrow's going to be a good episode. Everyone should really just lock in for tomorrow. Oh no, is that a good one or a bad one?
Yeah, we're on an Airbus, not a Boeing, so it should be better.
Okay. Thank God.
Right. Well, I'm just gonna apply for a few credit cards. You know, these airlines are just everything's about the damn credit card. I'm just gonna be up here applying to credit cards and no Wi-Fi. So, fellas.
All right. Well, we got to 850 peak concurrence, and
that's good.
Literally everyone and their mother was live streaming the debate. So to those who watched,
yes,
thank you very much.
Yep.
That's not bad. As you see, it says you have 30,000 watching right now, but
well, that's the Twitter numbers.
You know, fake or whatever. It doesn't make sense. All right. I love you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for all the super chats tonight. Moderators sucked. Who knows who's going to win the election? It's right around the corner. Before we know it, early voting is going to start in 2 weeks. Look at that.
Oh, my gosh.
Little preview.
Towers are coming down again tomorrow, folks.
And Jimmy bought a frog outfit. All right, guys. We got a big special guest on Thursday. I love you guys. I'll see you guys in Dallas when I make it there. Love you guys. Peace.
All right. See ya.
Peace.